This podcast is going to be about reshaping, rethinking, and redefining what success looks like so we can live well, happy, meaningful lives. Because what I believe to be true is that both of these things can exist at once if we're willing to think differently about how we might perceive them to be in their current form. Hello, beautiful podcast family. It's been some time since we've done an episode for you, and to be really honest, I just wanted to take a minute to share why that's happened, where we're headed, and what you can expect. So we actually haven't released an episode at all this year in 2026, and it's because behind the scenes I've been doing some work around a number of things, and one of the key pieces is actually letting you know that this podcast will be shifting. Now, over the past few years, I have had so much fun delivering this podcast to you, sometimes weekly, sometimes fortnightly, every now and then as well with guests. And it's been a delight. You know, the podcast really for me has been an opportunity to test new ideas, share my thinking, unpack different concepts I've been playing with, struggling with. I brought you ideas from my books, both of my books that were released in the education space. And it's been so much fun. But over the past few years, whilst I've had, tremendous success in the education space and also been able to have really robust conversations with so many of you, and I know that within this audience, there are educators and leaders who have got in touch with me and said, this podcast has really helped shape what we've done in our school environments. It's been a really big influencer of my own well-being. That over the time and the years doing this, it has had a positive impact. And for that, I'm really grateful. I'm really proud of that work. I'm really, I suppose, humbled in a way that my little podcast, me sitting behind a mic, with different backgrounds and in different spaces, with different ways of it looking and working, has been able to reach so many of you. But there comes a time where everything must evolve and must change and must shift. And if you've been following me online on socials, Insta or LinkedIn, you would have noticed that there's been a slight and subtle change in where I'm heading with work. And I've pulled back these past few months. And that's really because I have been behind the scenes, as I said, working on where to from here. The education space is one element that I'm really invested in and passionate about. But my work can reach so many other people, and it's time it took on a new direction. Now, don't panic. I am not letting education go at all. I'll certainly be here, and I'm still around if you want me to work in your school, with your teams, at conferences, whatever those aspects look like. But this podcast is going to take a little bit of a turn, an expansion maybe, growth, an up-leveling, whatever you want to call it. Because from here on out, we are not talking about well-being, we're not talking about education, we're not talking about well-being in education. We are in fact going to, and you've probably noticed, shift this podcast to be all about rethinking success. Because what's become really apparent in the work that I've done over the past few years is that whilst we talk about wellness, well-being, self-care, mental health, and all of those different aspects, it is very much connected to how we perceive success. And what I really have been doing over the past few years, even though it falls under the well-being banner, is actually getting people to rethink what it means to be successful. Successful in how we work, successful in how we live, successful in how we build relationships, successful in how we manage and understand emotions, successful in how we design teams, successful in how we design workplaces. And to do all of that, we have to learn about these concepts, we have to recognize where we are, and we have to be willing to rethink the current paradigm we live in and be open to new ideas and thinking differently. In fact, if you've ever heard me speak on stage, you would have heard me borrow the term from Adam Grant, Vujade, and Vujade is all about showing up to the same problem. And instead of having deja vu and going, gosh, we've been here before, it's about turning up to the same problem and going, I know we've been here before, but how are we going to rethink this situation? How are we going to do something different? How are we going to shift past the acknowledgement of what's happening? And rather than go, well, this is just how it is, actually challenge ourselves to think differently about the entire concept. And so for me, That's what rethinking success is. It's not just looking at success in its traditional form that we know it to be. It's actually about breaking down all of the intricacies that sit alongside it. Yes, that includes well-being and wellness and self-care and those aspects, but more so how we work and how we live. And so from here on out, this podcast is going to be about reshaping, rethinking, and redefining what success looks like so we can live well, happy, meaningful lives that don't require us to have to choose between success or well-being, success or happiness, success or a great workplace. Because what I believe to be true is that both of these things can exist at once if we're willing to think differently about how we might perceive them to be in their current form. So if you've been a listener for a while, maybe it's your first time and you're like, oh, what's she doing here talking about this change? Or if you're someone who's jumped in and out, I want to welcome you to the whole new way of doing this podcast, of a new space, and of getting ready to think differently, not just about work and not just about well-being, but about all of the different pieces that go with it. So if this is landing for you, make sure you are coming along for the ride as we release quite a few episodes to kickstart us. And also, make sure you're aware my book, The Wellness Paradox, is coming out in the next couple of months, end of June 30, you'll be able to grab it. And again, if this is something that you like, as I've finished every other episode with, please have a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever time of day it is for you, and I'll see you on the next episode.